How often are you able to drive a car brand that has not already been in your country for the last 20 years? Well, not often, but in the future it will happen more and more, because I think the next 2 to 3 years will be the rise of the Chinese car brands, and especially the electric car brands. And today is a day like that, because standing here is the Aiways U5. First only available in Germany, but now also in the Netherlands and soon in more countries in Europe. Hello there, monsters and men, ladies and people, and welcome to Recharging. As I said, Aiways is a Chinese car manufacturer, and it is only founded in 2017, so that means in 3 years they built a factory and developed this car. I mean, that is pretty impressive. The name Aiways stands for AI is on the way. But what kind of car is the Aiways U5 then? Well, surprisingly, it is a crossover / SUV, because, well, that is what people like nowadays. This car comes standard with a 63 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and because of that I think the biggest competitor right now for this car is actually the Kia e-Niro with the 64 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The car that is standing here will cost you here in the Netherlands 39,000 euros, so that is actually, well, pretty good value. And the top of the range model, fully loaded, will cost you 42,000 euros. So actually a few grand cheaper than the fully loaded Kia e-Niro with that 64 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Compared to the Kia e-Niro though, the Kia e-Niro does not have a frunk, but this car does, because, well, it is designed as an electric car, so it does have a frunk. It is not big, but it is big enough to store your charge cables or maybe put some dirty and wet shoes, for example. But what about the boot? But before I open up the boot of this car, let's talk quickly about the rear, because as you can see there's not a whole lot going on. But as with a lot of premium brand nowadays, this Aiways U5 does have a rear light, LED rear light of course, that runs all the way over the back of the car, and in the dark that looks really nice. If I open up the boot of the Aiways U5, according to the specifications you should see a boot space of 432 liters. Which on paper is less than that of the Kia e-Niro. But trust me, I don't know how those specifications work, but this boot is bigger than that of the Kia e-Niro. It is absolutely massive. And then still, I mean, this space is already massive. Then you can lift up the boot cover, then you have a foam box, which also gives you massive space. And if you remove that, now let's remove this. Under there's also a box where you can store whatever you want. I mean, this boot is absolutely huge. But what if you fold down the rear seats? Huh? Why is he standing at the side of the car already? Because I've not even seen the boot space with the rear seats folded down. Well, that is because to get a flat floor you have to do something special in this car. What you have to do is take the part where you actually sit on with your butt. I don't really know the name of that, because, well, that is the seat, right? So you have to take the seat and you have to flip it forward like that. And what you can then do is fold the backrest forward, and then you will get a flat boot space. Once you have done that though, you get a space of 1555 liters. I mean, it is absolutely massive, and the party does not stop there. I mean, I've never sat in a Mercedes S-Class or Audi A8 or whatever, but I think this is executive amount of space. It is absolutely crazy back here. I mean, the seat in front of me is in my typical driving position. I'm 1 meter and 85 centimeters. And look at this space back here. And also there is plenty of headroom. It is absolutely crazy down here. Also, since this car is designed as an EV, there's no hump in the floor here, so you have a flat floor. The car is wide, so also sitting here with 3 persons, you will be perfect. I mean, I am super impressed. Before I got this car, I never expected this. Again, it's absolutely crazy. Also, the quality back here is really good. Soft touch materials up here, soft armrests, some leather look here. I mean, again, I did not expect that while I picked up the car. It is really good, and also everything feels solid. I mean, you do have an armrest back here with 2 cup holders, which you can divide if you want. There's an air vent down here, which does look like an ashtray, to be honest, but it is there, and there's a USB cable to charge whatever you want. I mean, look at this. nothing to complain. I can sit here for a few hours. Also, the quality here in the front interior is really good. I mean, you have soft touch material here up on the dash, here up on the door, even here in the door by your armrest with some nice stitching. I mean, the buttons feel nice, everything feels solid. Overall, the quality impression is actually better of a Kia e-Niro. What is a funny detail though is that the steering wheel is not only flattened here at the bottom but also at the top. I mean, you have to get used to it for maybe your first 2 drives, but after that, I mean, it's not something that annoys me. The interior itself is actually very minimalistic. You do have a few buttons for your windows, for the unlocking of your car, for the controls of your mirror, but most of the features of this car are controlled by the center display up here. What about cubby space then? Well, it's actually not that great for such a big car. I mean, you don't have a glove box at all. You do have a compartment here under your center console, which is probably a replacement of your glove box. You do have a cubby under the center armrest, and you do have door pockets, but they're not that big. I mean, they do fit a liter bottle, but 1.5 liter, I don't think that will fit. So yeah, for such a big car, cubby space, it's actually not that great. But of course you do have a big boot where you can store a lot of stuff. Then what about the elephant in the room, the infotainment system? Well, it is a okay system to use. I mean, the screen itself is clear, there's a high enough resolution, the system is responsive, it is just not always the most intuitive system to use. And that is because, well, it's not always clear what you can touch or not, what is a button or not. I mean, you can get to most of the functionality in 2 touches, so that is actually good. But again, it's not always clear what you can touch or not. And also the system, well, it does have some bugs. And not only this system, actually the whole software of the car. Of course, there are things that can be improved by software updates, but right now, this version that I have right now does have some bugs and some things that are just, not really correct. I mean, for example, when you get into the car, you do expect that your radio will play automatically. It doesn't. I mean, you get in, you start the car, well, you don't really start it because, well, you get in with your key, you just press the brake pedal and the car does start, but it does not automatically start playing the music. I mean, why? And then besides that, it does not have a DAB Plus radio. I mean, for a car in 2020, that is kind of strange. Maybe it's not a thing in China, but in Europe, I mean, DAB Plus is the new standard. And also, there's no list of all the radio stations available. I mean, you do see frequencies down here where there are radio stations, but I don't see their names or anything. So yeah, the software of this car can definitely use some improvements, and I do really hope that Aiways is going to do that. Also, this car does have Apple CarPlay, but it does not have Android Auto. Maybe the Chinese don't like Google, or they don't want to pay for it, but what it does have as a replacement is a system called Carbit. So Carbit is an Android Auto-like system, but what it does, it actually mirrors your phone. You can set 4 shortcut apps for your navigation, your music, and 2 others. So for example, navigation, if you press on navigation, then it will automatically start Google Maps. But because it mirrors your phone, what you can also do is open YouTube to watch YouTube or Netflix. That's actually pretty nice. But again, as I said, it mirrors your phone. So if you have your phone in the landscape position, or this landscape, Anyway, if you have your phone in this position, it will also show it like this on the screen in the infotainment system. So that is not ideal. You really have to keep your phone like this, so have your auto rotation on. Also, when you lock your phone, the system itself will be locked, so you have to keep your screen unlocked, but that is okay since you can only use the system with a USB port, so your phone will be charging anyway. It is a okay system to use, and it is fun that you can mirror, you can mirror games, you mirror YouTube or Netflix, but I still prefer Android Auto. I'm sorry. So while driving, there are 2 cameras in this car that are continuously watching you. Yes, Big Brother or the Chinese government is watching you. So you have one up here and one here in the pillar, and they are for a system called safety tips. And what it does is they continuously monitor you, and when you're looking off the road or when the camera thinks you're not looking at the road, you will get a warning of a nice lady. Please watch the road. Please quit smoking. Yes, yes, you do have all kinds of alerts. Yes, also one for quit smoking.
Please keep looking ahead while driving. Drowsy driving is dangerous. Please take a rest.
The system does not work flawlessly, and you sometimes get a safety tip while you are just looking at the road. This can be improved by software updates, but you can also turn it off. The Aiways U5 has a 204 horsepower engine with 310 Nm of torque. With that, it can do 0 to 100 in about 7.5 seconds, and the car is limited to 150 km an hour. The car has a 63 kWh battery pack, and about 59 kWh of that is usable energy. And according to Aiways, the WLTP range of this car is more than 400 kilometers. Well, I did a range test, and if you want to see the full range test, click up here. But keep in mind, it is winter. It was around 5 degrees Celsius outside when I did the test, but I got a range of 255 kilometers. So that is way off the 400 kilometers that Aiways claims it can do. In summer though, I do expect that this car can do around 300 kilometers, maybe even a little bit more, but that is still way off the 400 kilometers WLTP range that Aiways claims. Keep in mind though that this car, well, this is a big car, and compared to other cars of this size, the Aiways actually has a relatively small battery pack of only 63 kilowatt hours. The car is also relatively light. It's only 1,750 kilos, so that gives it actually quite a decent range for such a small battery pack. But what if your battery pack is empty? Well, fast charging, this car can take up to 90 kilowatts, and the charging curve of this car is actually pretty good, because charging from 5 to 75% will take you about 35 minutes. And if you want to see a full charging session of this car on a fast charger, click up here to see mine. On a regular street charger, well, this car does have a single phase onboard charger, so that means on 16 amps 3-phase it will only take 3.2 kilowatts, and then it will take you 20 hours to fill up this car. On 32 amp 3-phase it will take 7.2 kilowatts, and then it will take you about 10 hours to charge this car. But I heard rumors that the 2021 model will get a 3-phase onboard charger, so then it can take up to 11 kilowatts, and then charging the car will only take you about 6 to 7 hours. What I've noticed with this charge port though is that, well, it is the only car that I've seen that has the charge port located horizontally instead of vertically. And I thought putting in a big fat 350 kilowatt charge cable was going to be a hassle because of this. But it actually is not. No, the most annoying thing about this charge port is that, well, it is actually located quite low, as you can see, and there is no light in the charge port. So in the dark, and also a little bit because it is located sideways, it can be a little bit of a fiddle to put in your charge cables. Yes, I know, first world problems. Another thing that I noticed with this car is that, well, one day I charged at a Ionity charger. I was finished charging, I stopped the charging session, but the charge cable would not unlock. I was like, what's happening? So there are two buttons on your remote, on your key that you have to press so the charge port will unlock. But that also didn't happen. The charge cable was stuck. I read the manual, I actually called Ionity if they could do something, and a lot of frustration, a lot of reading manuals, watching videos, Googling, and 40 minutes later I did not find a solution, and I thought, well, there has to be some emergency release. So I opened up the bonnet, I removed some plastic covers, which maybe I shouldn't have done, but I did that, and I found a, well, maybe it was not the emergency release, but it was something that could unlock the charge port for me. But I mean, Aiways, this is something that you have to put in a manual. It's probably, again, a software bug that can be fixed with a software update, but please put in your manual where the emergency release is, because well, that can save people a lot of time if that happens to them. When driving with this car, don't expect anything sporty. This is just a very comfortable SUV to drive in. I mean, the suspension is comfortable and also the car is quiet even at higher speeds. The steering wheel has no feedback at all. I mean, you can adjust the lightness of the steering wheel, and when I picked up the car, the steering wheel was in its lightest setting, and that was just too light for such a big car. I now have it in the heaviest setting, but still, again, there's no feedback. I mean, I'm turning the steering wheel and the car is turning into the corner, but you have no idea what's happening down there. And because all the controls are so light and with not a lot of feeling, like the steering wheel and the brakes, you don't have the feeling that you're driving with such a big car, and not in a positive way in my opinion. Because when I am driving a big car, I want to know that I am driving a big car. I want things to feel sturdy, to feel planted. And well, this car does not really have that. Also, when I'm standing still and I want to accelerate, I'm standing still and I'm flooring the accelerator panel, for some reason there is like a half-second delay before the car actually starts accelerating. I mean, this is something that can probably be fixed with a software update, but I'm not sure of that. But right now it feels very unnatural. And these things probably don't matter for someone who just wants a big car to go from A to B in a very comfortable way. But personally, I'm not a big fan of the way this car drives. I have the feeling that I'm starting to repeat myself nowadays, because well, this car also has all the safety features that every modern car has nowadays, so nothing to complain there. There's also a system called iDrive, and no, it's not a BMW thing, and it is also not an Apple thing. No, it is the adaptive cruise control that can also steer for you. But this system still needs some software updates, and that is because well, sometimes the car did do some phantom braking, so that means it actually braked while there was nothing in my lane. And also when I tested if the car could keep itself centered in a lane, well, it had some troubles with that, and because of that it was more bouncing between the lines than keeping itself centered in the lane. But the most annoying thing is, I wanted to say was, but is, because it is still there, is that you cannot activate it if you drive over 130 kilometers an hour. You actually get a warning in your instrument cluster that you actually have to reduce speed in order to be able to activate it. I mean, who makes those decisions? I mean, sorry Germans, there's no way you can drive this car on cruise control on the Autobahn if you go faster than 130 kilometers an hour. Why? Why would you do that, Aiways? I don't understand it. The other thing is, when I was driving on the highway and I was nearing an exit, I turned off the iDrive system, and all kinds of warnings popped up in the instrument cluster in front of me. There was a red symbol, and in the fault list of the car it said there was a problem with the adaptive cruise control, and also a few orange lights actually went on in the instrument cluster. And I was like, what is happening? And when I turned on, I did nothing, so I turned around and went on the highway again. I activated the cruise control, and all the warning lights just went away like that. There was nothing going on. But I mean, those things can scare the hell out of people. So yeah, there are some software updates to be needed with this car. So is the Aiways U5 worth looking at? Well, as I said, personally, I'm not a big fan the way this car drives. But for most people who just want to go from A to B, it is fine. I mean, the quality of the interior is good, it has decent range for most people, and it has good charging capabilities. And I mean, I cannot think of another electric car that gives you this amount of space for this amount of money. It is really, really impressive. But the software needs some work, and I just hope that through software updates, Aiways keeps improving on the AI part of its name. And that was the review of the Aiways U5. I hope you liked it, and if you did, well, please give a like and do subscribe. If you did not, please leave a comment below to see what I can improve. And then I would like to say now, thank you a lot for watching, and as always, to be continued.